This is a continuation of our lesson in class yesterday called Twilight Forest. As you remember, yesterday we prepared our paper by soaking it for 20 minutes, stapling it down, then letting it completely dry so that when you touched it with the back of your hand, it was warm, not cool. Then we wet the paper down completely with a long, bristled, wide brush and made a puddle of whatever color you wanted for the sky, remembering that the sky will lighten as it dries. Then you're going to prepare any analogous color scheme in a tray. And when we talk about analogous color scheme, you can use a color wheel to find out what colors you might use. I chose purple and blue-violet, blue-green, and green. I only put in the purple, the blue, and the green, but when the two mix together, it will create those colors. You could choose a variety of colors to create your analogous color scheme. This was just what I chose. The next thing we did was trace our image onto using transfer paper onto our very, very dry prepared board. And starting at the top left, we started going down, and then after about an inch, added in another color so that the colors started melding as you painted down, adding more colors each inch. With the next tree, you'll want to make sure that you choose a different color to start so that they are not the same color across like striped socks. So now we're going to start here at the top. I'm going to choose a green and just move down. I'm not liking that brush. There we go. You don't have to follow the lines exactly, but it's kind of helpful to cover up the pencil lines as you go. Now we're adding in the blue, and see how the blue and the green mix together to make a little bit of a blue-green. So moving on, we're going to go down about an inch. And here I'm going to start with the purple, and I'm having to go grab my purple because my paint all moved together and made one big color in the middle of my tray. I'm using a squiggly stroke. Now I'm going to try another thing I want you to look at, and that's taking a half of the brush or half of the tree and then adding another collection to the half of the tree. Going down, down, and then when we get to the bottom, as you remember, we took a big brush, we took our mop brush, and I'm using different brushes here today, and bleed it out. And I'm going to start over here at the beginning so that the colors don't leave any hard lines. We may need to come and revisit this bottom section with water so that it continues to bleed out and not leave a hard line. I'll add a little blue in there too. That was purple, never mind. Okay, starting again at the top. Now I don't want to have the same color straight across here. So I'll start over again with purple. Here at the top. And squiggly wiggle. Just covering up the pencil lines. Notice the next tree is going to get a little bit of this bleeding in from the first tree that we did today. Here's what happened to my tray when I moved it. It all mixed together too thoroughly. So I'm having to recreate quickly on the fly, which is why you try to do it in the first place, but I moved it to show you, and there we are. I think I'm going to say that at the bottom of each tree I'm going to add more water to the ground. Okay, starting with green at the top this time. Oh, I had a little bit of purple on my brush. That kind of makes it do another aspect of the color when you already have paint on your brush, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on what you're wanting to do. That last tree's really blue, so I'm going to kind of try to, maybe this one over here I'll make it really purple or something so that there's some continuity with the color that's happening there. So now we're at the bottom, and I'm going to get another fresh swipe of paint or water on my brush without doing a lot of wiping off. You'll notice there was a drop down here that will hopefully get covered up or not. Tip a little bit to encourage this to bleed down a little more. Maybe take a dot more paint to bleed down. Putting it down again. Now I want some only green here. Okay, I've gone about an inch. Let's try straight blue now. Notice I'm holding my brush about 2.5 inches from the ferrule here so that I'm not bearing down on it too much. And you want to have a little lighter touch with your brush, especially with this process, so that you don't get tight lines. You want to have some looseness to these brushes, or to these brush strokes. So I'm going to try again this process of touching that other tree so that they meld together. Then I want to start this other half of the tree so that we kind of get an interesting effect with half of it being blue. Notice how there's a few little holidays there, or sunlight floating through. this tree. There's sunlight there floating through. We want to keep it fairly consistent, the amount of sunlight going through, so that each tree doesn't look like it's from another crazy forest. Continuing on with blue now. You can still see the individual trees, but they meld together in a kind of a neat way. Tipping the board up again. That's another reason it's nice to have that board, because it's just so easy to lift your painting up and have the gravity help you out. As I've said before, gravity is your friend. Okay, so it's green up here and kind of green blue here, so I'm going to start with purple up on this one. This next tree is going to be purple. And I'm almost using a dabbing kind of touch on the paper. Like I went an inch, more than an inch there. So let's add some more blue into that. And quickly go to some green. When we're finished and the paper's totally dry, I can erase all these marks from my transfer paper. Hopefully. If not, it becomes part of the painting, and that's what you meant to do, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is the one I'm going to make green to kind of match with this blue one. Time for some purple down there at the bottom. So you're looking at where you're putting color, what you're doing with the trees. Notice the trees are all a different height, and that's one thing we'll talk a lot more about with our composition. You don't want a tree farm growing here, unless you're really wanting to make a tree farm, but this is evidently not a tree farm. So you're going to want to make sure that your trees are not all equidistant from each other, nor are they the same width or the same height. Let's add a little bit more down in the ground there, and I think I want to do some more green and blue here. Green there. Oh, it turned brown, dark. Notice how the green and the purple makes black. That's because green has yellow in it and blue, and purple has red and blue. And when you put 2 or 3 of the primary colors, you'll end up with a neutral dark color. Some people call it mud, but there really is a purpose for that. Okay, that's a little bit or too dry. So just take a wet brush, not terribly drippy, and then touch to encourage the paint to go down. So as we're doing this, I'm reminding myself and getting some more experience with, again, see, I've let that dry, so I really shouldn't do a lot of anything with that. So I'm taking a very dry brush and trying to dry this a bit so that I don't end up with a hard line or a back bloom that I don't want. Taking a little bit of Kleenex. I'm going to wipe up some of this extra water. Totally fine. Now notice this has made a really nice drip. And I think if I were to do this again, I'd try to do more dripping because I like that look. we'll try at the top of this next one. This one's going to be our mostly green tree. And a nice thick paint. Again, I'm handicapped by my paint that rolled all together, and I can't get a single color without dipping into my paint palette. But I think we're doing okay. Hopefully this will work. Okay, this is mostly green, and I think I want to put a little mostly blue, or a good blue in here, maybe over on the corner, so that it's not totally blue. Then revert back to the green. Okay, here we go. Let's see what happens when I do even a more purposeful drip here. By getting a load of brush or paint on my brush, by touching the paint and then making sure that I'm checking it on my try sheet. I like that color. Just kind of encouraging it to go down. Now I'm just getting a little bit of water and making more drip. So this next tree, I think I want to make it more blue because I've done purple here. And we don't want purple, green, purple, green, purple, green, or purple, green, blue, purple, green, blue. Because we want it to be a random pattern. So I'm going to put blue here. Get some more paint and nice bright blue there. That kind of feels garish, but there's more blue over here too. So I think we're using some unity of color by making sure the blues and the are kind of similar with the tree next to it. Starting up above, where before I stopped the blue, I'm adding green now so that I can encourage the colors to start playing together sooner. Now I think it's time to put a purple in. Remember, when we put our purple next to the green, it's going to turn almost black. It will dry lighter, of course, but it sure does look black there. If I don't want it so black, I'm going to touch the water, put the brush to the water to try to dilute it down a little bit. Leaving some skips. Now I want to get some pure purple. Putting it in my palette. Here, this is how I should have done this, is slide it rather than lift it. Double checking that I like the color. If it's too dark, you can always add water. Water is your white. That's why you don't need to use that white that's in that paint box, the Yarka paint. Again, we're going to take a stronger purple and dab it here at the bottom to encourage dripping. Alrighty, last tree. I was tempted to touch this tree because I like the way it kind of tipped over. See if I can encourage it to tip maybe that way. But then I noticed that this one tips that way, so I don't want this other one to tip that the same way. Again, we're working on some composition here and thinking as we're going. We'll pretend like a porcupine ate the top of that one. Okay, I'm going to start with green at this one. So I've got purple at the top, kind of a combination, purple, green, purple, blue, purple, green, purple, green. So we don't have, I'm noticing we don't have a hard pattern. That's good. Unless, of course, you want it. Any of the rules that we share with you here in class are made to be broken. And what I encourage you to do is learn the rules, practice the rules, and then break them on purpose at when you want. Breaking them on purpose, you'll be cognizant of what's happening and be able to make it work for you. If you just blithely go around painting without thinking, then you're going to end up with a painting that you look at later and think, oh, next time I think I'll do this. It's time for some purple now on this right-hand side of the tree. So it'll meld in with the blue and kind of make a blue-violet. And I don't want to end up with purple down here, nor do I want to end up with green. I think I need some blue down there. So I know as I'm going, I'm thinking how and what colors I'm going to be wanting to end up with, because I don't want to end up with, again, a pattern at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to need to meld into maybe some green down here. Notice that when I put paint in where I've already gotten it wet, the paint only goes to where it was wet. That's kind of the neat, another one of those neat things about water is that it kind of helps you paint in that you don't have to be so careful. You can just put paint, put paint here, and the water action will spread it out to the ends of where, until the water stopped. Okay, now we're ready for blue. Clean my brush, and I kind of want a nice, beautiful blue here. More water on my brush. And this is that ultramarine blue again. This is called a warm blue. It took me a long time to tell the difference between warm and cool blue, and I'm still not sure I can always identify the warm and cool blues. Now I know to remember that I hadn't been wetting this with each tree, so I need to do that again, and hopefully it doesn't leave a strong line over there where it kind of dried. Okay, here we go with that drippy. I notice I lost when I did the extra water there with my big brush. I lost some of the purple, so I'm going to go add the purple again so that it's a nice strong drip there. I think when this is dry, I'm going to go back over to this other side so that I can make these trees have a stronger, as Debbie was saying, root system here at the bottom. But that won't be till it's totally dry. Okay, so for now, this painting is going to sit and wait for it to dry, and I'll add some more later. And again, what I'll be adding is I'll be tipping my painting, wetting this whole section, and then adding some probably green here, green here. Maybe this would be purple, green, and then maybe some more green, and we've got more blue, and then green there. Looks like I like this section here. And I want all of it to do that. So there we go. Have fun.